You deserve nothing. The hotel owner screamed at the single mother who just discovered $234 million in stolen bonds hidden in room 13 safe. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The rain hammered against the cracked windows of the Riverside Inn, like it was trying to break through and wash away 40 years of neglect. Lisa wiped down the lobby counter for the third time that night, not because it needed cleaning, but because movement kept her awake during the graveyard shift. Her hands, red and raw from years of bleach and cheap soap, moved in practice circles across the warped wood. The fluorescent lights above flickered with that particular rhythm that meant they'd die soon, just like everything else in this place. She glanced at the old brass clock behind the desk. 3:17 in the morning. In 5 hours, she'd wake Olivia for school, make breakfast from whatever was left in the mini fridge in their cramped staff quarters, and pretend that living in a dying hotel was an adventure instead of a trap. 8 years old and already too wise, Olivia had stopped believing the adventure story. 2 years ago, the Riverside Inn sat on the edge of Cedar Rapids like a forgotten tombstone, its Art Deco facade crumbling beneath decades of Midwest winters and broken promises. 22 rooms, only 6 of them rentable, the rest were condemned, water-damaged, or simply locked away like secrets. Lisa had been the night manager for 3 years, which really meant she was the maid, the desk clerk, the security guard, and the maintenance worker, all rolled into one exhausted body. Derek, the owner, paid her $9 an hour under the table. No benefits, no overtime, just enough to keep her desperate, but not quite enough to leave. He'd inherited the place from his father 5 years ago and treated it like a burden he couldn't shake, showing up once a month to collect what little money came in and remind Lisa how replaceable she was. "You're lucky I keep you on," he'd said last week, his breath reeking of scotch at 10 o'clock in the morning. Single mother, no degree, no skills except pushing a mop. Who else would hire you? Lisa had bitten her tongue until it bled. Thinking of Olivia, thinking of the roof over their heads, thinking of the free breakfast she could sneak from the continental spread before the few guests woke up. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Tonight felt heavier than most. The October wind rattled the loose window panes, and somewhere in the walls, pipes groaned like the building itself was in pain. Lisa moved through her routine, checking the ancient boiler that needed coaxing every few hours, collecting the day's towels from the bin nobody else would touch, scrubbing stains from carpets that would never truly be clean again. She paused outside room 7, where Mr. Hargrove stayed every Tuesday. Retired railroad worker, always paid in exact change. Always asked about Olivia's grades. He was one of the good ones, the kind who still saw her as a person instead of just the help. Most guests looked through her like she was part of the wallpaper, faded and forgettable. The staff quarters where she and Olivia lived were behind the kitchen. 2 small rooms that had once been storage closets. Lisa had done her best to make them feel like home. Olivia's drawings covered the walls. Bright splashes of color against the beige paint. A string of Christmas lights stayed up year-round because Olivia said they made the room feel magical. Their beds were just mattresses on the floor, but Lisa had found decent sheets at the Salvation Army and kept them fresh and neat. Olivia's backpack sat by the door. Homework tucked inside. Lunch money envelope paper clipped to the front pocket. $2.35 for tomorrow. Lisa had counted it 3 times to make sure. The school had sent home another notice about the field trip to the Science Museum next month. $25 might as well have been $1,000. She returned to the lobby and pulled out her notebook, the one where she kept track of everything. Every penny earned, every bill that needed paying, every dream deferred. The numbers never added up the way they needed to. Rent for their quarters. Yes, Derek charged her rent to live in the hotel where she worked, groceries, Olivia's school supplies, the minimum payment on the medical debt from when Olivia had pneumonia 2 winters ago. Always behind, always scrambling, always one disaster away from losing everything. The front door chimed and Lisa looked up to see Derek stumbling in. Her stomach clenched. He only showed up at night when he was drunk and looking for someone to blame for his failures. "Still here, Lisa?" he slurred. Expensive shoes clicking on the cracked tile floor. Even wasted. He dressed like the successful businessman he pretended to be. "Thought maybe you'd finally figured out you're worth more somewhere else." "Just doing my job, Derek." She kept her voice steady, neutral. She'd learned not to show fear or anger. Both made things worse. He leaned against the counter, his cologne failing to mask the smell of whiskey and disappointment. "Your job," he laughed, ugly and sharp. "You know what your job really is? It's to be grateful. Grateful I haven't thrown you and that kid out on the street." Lisa's hand still on the notebook. "We've never been late with rent. I've never missed a shift." "Rent?" Derek spat the word. $75 a month for those closets is charity. You know what I could get if I cleaned this place up? If I didn't have dead weight dragging me down." The unfairness of it burned in her throat. She worked 60 hours a week for less than minimum wage. Lived in converted storage rooms. And somehow she was the burden. But she swallowed the words. Olivia needed stability. Needed to finish the school year without another move, another disruption. Derek pulled out a key ring and jangled it in her face. "You know what the real problem is? This place. This whole damn building. My father left me a tomb, and I'm stuck being the caretaker." He held up one key, older than the others, brass gone dark with age. "You ever wonder about room 13, Lisa kept her face carefully blank. "You said never to ask about it, smart girl." Finally, he pocketed the keys again. "Room 13 is why this place will never be worth anything. Room 13 is dear old Dad's final joke on me." He pushed off from the counter, swaying slightly. "But you wouldn't understand family legacy, would you? What would a nobody like you know about inheritance?" The words stung as they were meant to. Lisa had no family legacy, no inheritance except hard work and harder choices. Her parents died when she was 19, left nothing but debt and memories. Olivia's father vanished before she was born, leaving only his absence and a last name Lisa refused to use. Derek wandered toward the stairs, then turned back. "Oh, and Lisa, that pathetic salary you're so grateful for, I'm cutting it. $850 an hour starting next month. Economy's tough all over." "Derek, I can't." The words escaped before she could stop them. "I can barely make ends meet as it is. Olivia needs a mother who can provide." His voice turned cold. All traces of drunken rambling gone. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to raise a kid alone. Not my problem if you can't hack it. Plenty of people looking for work who don't come with baggage." He climbed the stairs, each step echoing in the empty lobby. Lisa stood frozen, her mind racing through impossible math. $850 an hour, even with 60 hours a week. That was barely $2,000 a month before taxes. Rent, food, utilities at their quarters. Gas for the ancient Honda that barely started anymore. Olivia's school expenses. It didn't work. It couldn't work. She sank into the desk chair and put her head in her hands. 3 years she'd held on. 3 years of being invisible, reliable, uncomplaining. 3 years of watching Olivia grow up in a hotel that was falling apart around them, pretending it was temporary, pretending something better was just around the corner. The hotel breathed around her in the darkness, familiar as her own heartbeat. She knew every water stain on the ceiling, every place where the carpet had worn through to the padding underneath. She knew which rooms had bed bugs, 3 and 16. Which toilets ran constantly, 9 and 12, which windows wouldn't lock properly, too many to count. She knew that Miss Hargrove in 7 was the only reason the ice machine still worked. She'd fixed it herself with parts from the hardware store. At 4:30, she did her rounds. Second floor first, checking that the vacant room stayed vacant, that no one had broken in, looking for shelter or trouble. The hotel attracted both. The hallway was darker than usual. 2 more bulbs had died since last week. She made a note to replace them, though Derek would complain about the expense. Room 10 empty. Room 11 empty. Room 12 empty. Room 13's door stood like always, solid and silent. Unlike the other doors with their cheap replacements and flimsy locks, 13 had its original door from the 1960s. Solid oak brass fixtures that belonged in a better place. The numbers were slightly tarnished, but still elegant. In 3 years, she'd never seen inside. Even when she'd first started and tried every key on her ring out of curiosity, none had fit. "What's your secret?" she whispered to the door, then felt foolish. Talking to doors, another sign she'd been alone too long on these night shifts. Back downstairs, she settled at the desk with a cup of instant coffee and watched the clock crawl toward morning. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and somewhere in the distance, a train whistle cut through the darkness. She thought about Derek's threat. 850 an hour. The number spun in her head like a slot machine that never hit the jackpot. Maybe she could find a second job. But when she already worked nights and Olivia needed her during the days, maybe she could ask her neighbor, Mrs. Patel, to watch Olivia more often. But Mrs. Patel was 73 and dealing with her own health problems. Maybe she could finally swallow her pride and apply for more government assistance. But the last time she'd tried, they'd said she made too much to qualify. Too much. The bitter laugh escaped before she could stop it. The front door chimed and Lisa straightened, pulling on her customer service smile. But it wasn't a guest. It was Victor, the weekend security guard who sometimes covered her shifts when Olivia was sick. "Hey, Lisa." He stomped his feet on the mat, shaking off the rain. "Heard you had a visit from the boss man tonight. News travels fast." Victor's face was sympathetic. "Walls are thin. Heard what he said about cutting pay, too. That's cold, even for him." Lisa shrugged, aiming for casual and missing by miles. "It is what it is." "No, it's not." Victor poured himself coffee from the pot she'd made. "You work harder than anyone in this place. Hell, you are this place. Without you, it would have closed 2 years ago. Tell that to my bank account." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Victor was one of the few people who treated her like an equal. Maybe because he was struggling too. 60 years old, working security after the factory closed, sending money back to family in Mississippi. "You ever think about just leaving?" he asked. "Taking Olivia and starting fresh somewhere?" "Every day," Lisa admitted. "But with what money? Where would we go? At least here we have a roof over our heads, even if it leaks. Olivia's in school, has friends. I can't just uproot her because things are hard." "Things aren't just hard, Lisa. They're impossible. And Derek knows it. He's got you trapped and he likes it that way." The truth of it sat heavy between them. Lisa had thought about it before. How Derek seemed to prefer employees who couldn't leave. The housekeeper with the green card issues, the maintenance man with the criminal record, and her, the single mother with no degree and a sick kid, people who would take whatever he offered because the alternative was nothing. "I should get back to rounds." Victor set down his cup. "You need anything, you call me. And I mean that. We've got to look out for each other." After he left, Lisa felt the loneliness settle back in like fog. 5:00 a.m. 3 more hours until Olivia woke up. 3 more hours to pretend she had answers instead of just questions. She pulled out Olivia's school folder and looked at the Science Museum permission slip again. $25 by November 15th, 3 weeks away. Maybe she could sell something. But what? They didn't own anything worth selling. Her wedding ring was long gone. Pawned to pay for antibiotics 2 years ago. The TV in their room was a hand-me-down from a guest who'd left it behind. Even their clothes came from donation bins and thrift stores. The hotel creaked and settled around her, and Lisa found herself thinking about room 13 again. What was in there that made Derek so bitter? What legacy had his father left behind that locked door? She'd heard stories from the longtime residents in town. Derek's father, Robert, had been different. He'd run the hotel like he cared about it, kept it nice, hired locals, paid fair wages. Then something changed in the late 70s. He became secretive, paranoid, stopped maintaining the place, fired most of the staff. When he died 5 years ago, the hotel was already half dead, too. Lisa shook off the thoughts. It wasn't her mystery to solve. She had enough real problems without borrowing imaginary ones. 6 a.m. arrived with pale light creeping through the lobby windows. Lisa began the breakfast setup, such as it was instant oatmeal, white bread for toast, bruised apples, and the ancient coffee maker that took 20 minutes to brew a pot. The continental breakfast promised on the faded sign outside was more like a continental disappointment, but it was included in the room rate, and some guests needed it. By 7, she was back in their quarters, gently shaking Olivia awake. Morning, baby girl. Time to rise and shine. Olivia burrowed deeper into her covers. 5 more minutes. Sorry, sweet pea. Bus comes at 7:45 and you need breakfast. Olivia sat up, hair a wild tangle, eyes still heavy with sleep, even rumpled and grumpy. She was the most beautiful thing Lisa had ever seen. Is there cereal, Cheerios, or cornflakes? Can I have both mixed together? Lisa smiled, living dangerously. I like it. They ate breakfast sitting on Olivia's bed. The morning routine as familiar as breathing. Lisa French braided Olivia's hair while she ate, fingers working automatically through the silky strands. Olivia chatted about school, about her best friend Sophia, about the book they were reading in class. Mom, Olivia asked as Lisa zipped up her backpack. Are we poor? The question hit like cold water. Lisa knelt down, looking Olivia in the eyes. Why are you asking, baby? Sophia said her mom said we live in a hotel because we're poor. She said normal people don't live in hotels. Lisa's throat tightened. 8 years old and already learning how cruel the world could be. We live here because I work here. It's convenient. And we have everything we need, don't we? Food, clothes, each other. Olivia nodded, but her eyes were too knowing. I guess I just wish we had a real house with a yard and maybe a dog. Someday, Lisa promised, hating herself for the lie. Someday we'll have all of that. After Olivia caught the bus, Lisa returned to find Derek in the lobby, looking worse for wear, but unfortunately sober. He had papers spread across the counter. Eviction notices, he said without preamble, for rooms 3 and 7. They're behind on rent. Want them out by the end of the week. Lisa's heart sank. Derek, Mr. Hargrove in 7. He's just waiting for his social security check. He's been here for 2 years. Always pays. Always pays late. Derek corrected. I'm done being a charity. This is a business, not a shelter. It's October. You can't put an elderly man on the street. I can and I will. His eyes were cold. Unless you want to cover his rent. No. Then do your job and deliver the notices. Lisa took the papers with numb fingers. Room 3 was a young couple with a new baby. They'd been late twice since the husband lost his job. Room 7 was Mr. Hargrove, who'd fixed the ice machine, who asked about Olivia, who sometimes left candy for her at the desk. Problem? Derek asked, noting her hesitation. No, Lisa lied. No problem. Good, because if you can't handle the hard parts of this job, I'm sure I can find someone who can, probably for $8 an hour instead of $850. The threat hung between them like a blade. Lisa nodded, tucked the notices into her pocket. Another piece of her soul traded for survival. The day dragged on. Lisa delivered the notices, hating herself with each knock. Mr. Hargrove's face when he opened the door would haunt her. The quiet dignity in his voice when he said he understood he'd make arrangements. The couple in 3 didn't answer, but she heard the baby crying behind the thin door. By afternoon, exhaustion weighed on her like a physical thing. She'd been awake for over 30 hours, but there was laundry to do, rooms to clean, and Derek hovering like a vulture, watching for any excuse to cut her pay further. She was changing sheets in room 5 when she heard it. A sound from above, directly overhead. Room 13 was directly above room 5. The sound came again. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate. Lisa froze. Derek had left an hour ago. No one else had keys to that room. No one was supposed to be up there. She grabbed her master keys and headed for the stairs. Heart pounding. The second-floor hallway was empty. Afternoon light slanting through the window at the end. The footsteps had stopped. Lisa approached room 13 carefully, keys clutched like a weapon. The door was closed, looking exactly as it always did. She pressed her ear against the wood. Nothing, no sound, no movement, but something felt different. The air around the door seemed charged, expectant. Then she noticed it. The door knob, usually dull with age, was bright, polished, like someone had been turning it, their hand wearing away years of tarnish. Lisa reached out slowly, hand trembling. The knob was warm to the touch. She turned it, expecting resistance, expecting it to be locked as always. It turned smoothly. The door opened. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She pushed the door wider. Afternoon light from the hallway, spilling into a room that shouldn't exist. Not in this broken-down hotel. Not behind a door locked for decades. The room shouldn't have been beautiful, but it was, where the rest of the Riverside Inn groaned under the weight of decay and neglect. Room 13 existed in a bubble of preservation. The burgundy carpet was thick beneath Lisa's feet, untouched by years of traffic. The wallpaper, a rich damask pattern in gold and cream, showed no signs of water damage or peeling edges. The 4-poster bed stood draped in velvet curtains that belonged in a museum, not a hotel where she scrubbed toilets for $9 an hour. But it was the wall safe that drew her forward like a magnet. Where a painting should have hung, the safe dominated the space, its door hanging open like it had been waiting for her. Not forced, not broken, just open. The metal gleamed despite what must have been decades of hiding. Lisa approached slowly, her work shoes silent, and on the pristine carpet. The afternoon light from the hallway barely reached this far, and shadows pooled in the corners like secrets. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it into the safe's dark mouth. Papers, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, arranged in neat bundles wrapped with bands that had yellowed with age. Lisa reached in with trembling fingers and pulled out the first bundle. The paper felt expensive, heavy, like currency, but different. Even in the dim light, she could see the elaborate borders, the official seals, the careful typography that spelled out words that made no sense. Bearer bond, pay to bearer, $100,000. Lisa's legs gave out, and she sat hard on the spotless carpet, still clutching the bundle. She counted with shaking hands. 10 bonds, $1 million in a single stack, and the safe was full of them, layer after layer, arranged with the kind of obsessive precision that spoke of fear or guilt or both. She pulled out another bundle, then another. The numbers blurred together. 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, more. Each bond dated from the late 1970s. Each one promising payment to whoever held it. No questions asked, no names needed. 234 million. The whisper escaped before she could stop it. She'd counted twice, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes saw. $234 million in untraceable bonds hidden in a locked room of a dying hotel where she made $9 an hour cleaning strangers' sheets. Lisa's first thought wasn't of wealth or escape. It was of Olivia. Olivia who needed $25 for a field trip. Olivia who wore thrift store shoes and pretended not to notice when the other kids had better. Olivia, who ate free school lunch and thought mixing two kinds of cereal was living dangerously. The moral weight of it crashed down on her. This wasn't her money. These bonds belonged to someone, had been hidden, and for a reason. But as she sat there surrounded by more wealth than she could comprehend, all she could think about was Derek cutting her pay to $850 an hour, Derek throwing out Mr. Hargrove. Derek's Scotch breath as he reminded her how replaceable she was. A sound from the hallway made her freeze. Footsteps heavy and purposeful. Lisa scrambled to her feet, shoving the bonds back into the safe, but there were too many scattered on the floor. Too much evidence of her discovery. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Lisa! Derek's voice sharp with suspicion. What are you doing in there? Her mind raced. He'd left. She'd seen him leave. But here he was, and here she was, caught red-handed in the one room he'd forbidden her from entering. The door pushed wider, and Derek filled the frame, his face shifting from confusion to rage as he took in the scene. Lisa on her knees, surrounded by scattered bonds, the safe open behind her like an accusation. His color drained, then rushed back red. "You stupid girl," he hissed, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. "You stupid, stupid girl, Derek. I can explain." "Explain." His laugh was ugly. "Explain how you broke into a locked room. Explain how you're stealing from me." The door was open, Lisa said, hating how her voice shook. "I heard noises and the door was open." Derek crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed her arm, yanking her to her feet. His fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Any idea what you've touched? Let go of me." Lisa tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Those bonds." His voice dropped to a whisper, eyes darting to the safe like it might bite. "They're not mine. They were never mine. They're a curse my father left me. And now you've disturbed them." Lisa stopped struggling. "What do you mean?" Derek released her arm and ran, shaking hands through his hair. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked afraid. 1978, my father was the county treasurer, model citizen. Everyone said, helped allocate federal funds for infrastructure, disaster relief, pensions. He laughed bitterly. Except the money never made it where it was supposed to go. He converted it all to bearer bonds, untraceable, unregistered. $234 million meant for roads and schools and storm victims. Hidden right here in his precious hotel. Lisa's mind reeled. He stole federal money. Embezzled. The word is embezzled. Derek paced the room like a caged animal. He was going to run, take the bonds, and disappear. Had it all planned out. New identity, Swiss accounts, the whole thing. But he had a heart attack first. Died at his desk in City Hall, and no one ever found the missing money. "But you knew," Lisa said quietly. "You've always known." Derek turned on her, eyes wild. "Of course I knew. He told me on his deathbed, his big confession. The money's in room 13. He said, our salvation is in room 13. Except he didn't tell me it was stolen money. He didn't tell me touching it would make me an accessory to federal crimes. He didn't tell me the FBI still had an open case, that they still watched, still waited. Lisa looked at the bonds scattered on the floor. Understanding dawning. That's why you never sold the hotel. Why you let it rot. You can't let anyone look too closely. And now you've ruined everything. Derek's voice rose. They'll know someone's been in here. They'll investigate. They'll find out. Who'll know? Lisa interrupted. Derek, no one knows I'm here. We can put everything back. You think it's that simple? He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. You think you can just walk away from this? You're nobody, Lisa. A single mother with no education, no connections, no power. You touch this money. Try to cash even one of those bonds and you'll be in federal prison before you can say embezzlement. And your precious Olivia, she'll be in foster care. The mention of Olivia snapped something in Lisa. She shoved Derek hard, surprising them both. Don't you threaten my daughter. Threaten? Derek's face twisted. I'm trying to save you, you ungrateful. He caught himself, took a breath. Look, we can fix this. Put everything back. Lock the door. Pretend this never happened. You keep your mouth shut. I'll even give you a raise. $10 an hour. How's that? Lisa stared at him. $10 an hour to pretend she hadn't seen $234 million. $10 an hour to keep being small. Keep being stepped on, keep watching Olivia grow up in poverty while a fortune molded in a locked room. No, she said quietly. No. Derek's voice cracked. What do you mean no? I mean, no. Lisa straightened her shoulders. I won't pretend I didn't see this. These bonds, they're from federal money meant to help people. People who needed disaster relief, infrastructure, support, and your father stole it all. My father is dead, Derek shouted. The people who needed that money are probably dead, too. It's been over 40 years. What good does it do anyone sitting in that safe? Lisa thought of Mr. Hargrove being evicted, the young couple with the baby. Every person Derek had squeezed and discarded. What good does it do you? You can't spend it. Can't use it. You just sit on it like a dragon hoarding gold while everyone around you suffers. You self-righteous little. Derek stepped closer and Lisa saw something shift in his eyes. The fear was still there, but underneath it something colder. You know what? You're right. I can't spend it. But I can't let you leave here knowing about it either. Lisa's blood chilled. She took a step back. But Derek matched it. Derek, think about what you're saying. I am thinking for the first time in 5 years. I'm thinking clearly. His voice had gone calm, which was somehow worse than the shouting. You're the night manager. You work alone. Accidents happen in old hotels. Faulty wiring. Gas leaks falls downstairs. Lisa's hand found the heavy brass bookend on the shelf beside her. You're not a killer, Derek. I'm not a thief either, but here we are. He lunged forward. Lisa swung the bookend with all her strength. It connected with Derek's shoulder, spinning him sideways. She didn't wait to see if he'd fall. She ran, bond scattering under her feet, out the door and down the hallway. Behind her, Derek roared in pain and rage. She flew down the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, her mind racing ahead. Olivia, she had to get Olivia. Had to get away. Had to. Derek caught her at the lobby desk, his hand tangling in her hair, yanking her backward. You stupid woman. You've ruined everything. Lisa grabbed the desk phone and swung it like a weapon. It caught Derek in the face and he released her. Blood streaming from his nose. She scrambled away, putting the desk between them. "It's over, Derek," she panted. "I'm calling the police, the FBI, everyone." Derek wiped blood from his face, smearing it across his expensive shirt. "You think they'll believe you? You think anyone will take the word of a hotel maid over mine? I'm a business owner. You're nothing. You deserve nothing." The words hit harder than any physical blow. You deserve nothing. How many times had she believed that? How many times had she accepted the scraps the world threw her way because she thought that was all she was worth? "You're wrong," Lisa said, her voice steadier than her hands. "I deserve better. Olivia deserves better. And those bonds, they deserve to go back to the people they were meant to help." Derek laughed ugly and wet through the blood. "The people? You think the government will use that money to help people? They'll pocket it just like my father did. At least keeping it here. It's honest theft. There's nothing honest about any of this." "Fine." Derek pulled out his the phone. "Let's call them together. Let's see what happens when they find out you've been in that room, touched that money. Your fingerprints are all over it now. Who do you think they'll blame? The respected hotel owner or the desperate single mother who just happened to discover millions in bearer bonds?" Lisa's certainty wavered. He was right about one thing. Her fingerprints were everywhere. She had no proof the door had been open. No evidence she hadn't broken in. It would be her word against his. And she knew how that story usually ended. "That's right," Derek said, seeing her hesitation. "Think it through. Best case scenario, you spend years in court proving your innocence while Olivia grows up without a mother. Worst case, you go to prison and I tell everyone how you tried to steal from me, how you broke into a locked room looking for valuables. Who's going to hire you after that? Who's going to rent to you?" The weight of it crushed down on Lisa. Even in trying to do right, she'd trapped herself. The system that had kept her small. Her whole life would protect Derek and destroy her. That's how it always worked. "But I'm not unreasonable," Derek continued, dabbing at his still bleeding nose. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to quit tonight. Pack up your little closet and take your kid and disappear. Leave town. Leave the state. I don't care. But you're going to go quietly. And you're going to stay quiet. In exchange, I won't press charges for assault or breaking and entering. I didn't break. Do we have a deal?" Derek interrupted. "Or do I call the police right now and tell them I caught you stealing?" Lisa looked around the lobby of the hotel that had been her prison for 3 years. The water-stained ceiling, the flickering lights, the threadbare carpet. She thought of Olivia doing homework under a lamp held together with duct tape. Of Mr. Hargrove's dignified face when she delivered his eviction notice. Of $234 million sitting in a safe while people suffered. "No deal," she said quietly. Derek's face darkened. "What? You heard me." Lisa straightened, feeling something shift inside her. "I'm not running. I'm not disappearing. And I'm not letting you sit on blood money while good people lose everything. You're making a mistake." "Maybe." Lisa picked up the desk phone again, but this time to dial, "But it's my mistake to make." She called 911, keeping her eyes on Derek the whole time. "I need to report the discovery of stolen federal funds at the Riverside Inn." "Yes, I'll wait for officers." "Yes, I understand." Derek's face cycled through rage, fear, and finally a terrible resignation. He slumped against the wall, looking older than his years. "You have no idea what you've done." "Yes, I do." Lisa set down the phone. "I've chosen to stop being afraid." They waited in tense silence for the sirens to arrive. Lisa thought about Olivia, about how to explain why their life was about to change. She thought about the bonds upstairs, about choices made 40 years ago that still rippled through time. She thought about deserve, what it meant, who decided. When the police arrived, followed quickly by federal agents who seemed unsurprised by the call, Lisa told them everything. The open door, the safe, the bonds, Derek's confession. She showed them the bruises already forming on her arm, the blood on the desk phone. She watched them climb the stairs to room 13, heard their low whistles of amazement. Derek was arrested, led away in handcuffs while muttering about his father's curse. Lisa gave statement after statement, her voice growing stronger with each telling. When they finally said she could go, dawn was breaking over Cedar Rapids. She sat on the hotel's front steps, exhausted, but strangely light. Her phone buzzed. Mrs. Patel checking if Olivia could stay for breakfast. Lisa texted back yes, then added, "Thank you for everything." An FBI agent, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, sat down beside her. "You did a brave thing, Miss Lisa. Not many people would have made that call." "What happens now?" Lisa asked. "To the money, to the hotel, to us." The agent smiled slightly. "The money will be returned to federal custody. The hotel will likely be seized as evidence. As for you," she handed Lisa a card. "There are whistleblower protections, possible rewards for recovery of federal assets. You won't get rich, but you and your daughter won't suffer for doing the right thing. I'll make sure of that." Lisa took the card, reading the agent's name. "Patricia Patel, any relation to Mrs. Patel on Maple Street?" "My aunt," the agent admitted. "She called me 6 months ago, said a good woman and her daughter were living in terrible conditions at that hotel. Asked me to keep an eye out. I've been watching, waiting for something to break. I just didn't expect it to be this big." Lisa laughed, surprising herself. All this time thinking she was alone, invisible, and people had been watching out for her. "What would have happened if I'd taken the deal? If I'd run, then Derek would have kept sitting on that money, and you'd have spent the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." Agent Patel stood. "You chose the harder path, but it's the one that leads somewhere better for you and Olivia both." As the agent walked away, Lisa pulled out her phone and called the school. Olivia would need to be picked up today. They had a lot to talk about, plans to make, a future to figure out. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing ever was. But for the first time in years, Lisa felt like she could breathe. The sun rose over the Riverside Inn, painting the old building in shades of gold and possibility. Lisa stood, brushing off her work clothes that she'd never have to wear again. She had $43 in her bank account, no job, no home lined up, and a daughter who deserved better. But she also had her integrity intact, the promise of justice, and the knowledge that when tested, she'd chosen courage over comfort, truth over silence. "You deserve nothing." Derek's words echoed one last time before Lisa let them go. He was wrong. She deserved everything she was brave enough to reach for. And finally, after years of accepting less, she was ready to reach. The Riverside Inn stood behind her, keeping its secrets no more. And Lisa Monroe walked away from it toward whatever came next, head high, unafraid, and absolutely certain she'd made the right choice. What happens next will turn this mother's sacrifice into something extraordinary. Reveal allies in unexpected places and remind us why sometimes the smallest voices carry the most power. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The Howard Johnson's motel room smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. Lisa sat on the edge of the bed, watching Olivia sleep on the pull-out couch, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. It had been 3 days since the FBI seized the Riverside Inn. 3 days since their life exploded into chaos. 3 days of Olivia asking questions Lisa didn't know how to answer. Why can't we go home? When can I see my friends? Did you do something bad, Mom? That last one had cut deepest. Lisa had tried to explain in terms an 8-year-old could understand. Bad man hid bad money. Mom found it. Now good people are fixing it. But Olivia was too smart for simple stories. And the worry in her eyes made Lisa question every choice that had led them here. Her phone buzzed. Agent Patel again. Miss Monroe, I need you to come to the federal building tomorrow, 9:00 a.m. sharp. Bring any documentation you have from your employment at the hotel. Is everything okay? Lisa asked, keeping her voice low. There have been developments. Derek Price made bail. And he's hired Vincent Moretti. Lisa's blood chilled. Even she knew that name. Moretti was the lawyer criminals called when they were guilty but rich enough to walk anyway. The kind who could twist truth into lies and make judges believe it. What does that mean for us? Agent Patel's pause spoke volumes. It means you need to be prepared. Moretti will try to discredit you, paint you as a disgruntled employee who broke into private property. He'll dig into your past, your finances, everything. Lisa looked at Olivia, still sleeping peacefully. I don't have anything to hide. Everyone has something that looks bad in the wrong light. Agent Patel said gently. Just be ready. And Lisa, consider getting a lawyer of your own. With what money, Lisa thought, but didn't say. The whistleblower protection Agent Patel had mentioned was theoretical future money. Right now, she had $217 in her bank account and a daughter who needed stability. After hanging up, Lisa stepped onto the motel balcony. The night air was sharp with coming winter below. Traffic moved in rivers of red and white light. People going places, having lives, making plans beyond tomorrow. She'd lived so small for so long. Survival mode stretching into years. Now she'd done something big, and the weight of it threatened to crush her. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her thumb accept. Lisa Monroe. The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, my name is Elena Rivera. I'm an attorney with Rivera Legal Group. I understand you might need representation. Lisa's grip tightened on the phone. I can't afford a lawyer. You can't afford not to have one. I've been following your case. What you did took tremendous courage. My firm would like to take your case pro bono. Why? The question came out sharper than intended. Lisa had learned that nothing came free. Because 40 years ago, my grandfather lost his construction business when promised federal infrastructure funds never materialized. He died thinking he'd failed. Now I know he was stolen from. This case, it's personal. Lisa closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. All those bearer bonds. All that money meant for real people, real lives. When can we meet? How about now? I'm in the lobby. Lisa's eyes snapped open. What? Agent Patel called me 3 hours ago. Said you needed help, but would be too proud to ask. So, I came to you. 20 minutes later, Lisa sat across from Elena Rivera in the motel's shabby breakfast area. Elena was everything Lisa wasn't. Polished, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Lisa made in a month. But her eyes were kind and she listened without judgment as Lisa told the whole story again. Moretti's good, Elena said when Lisa finished. But he's also predictable. He'll attack your character, your motives, your history. He'll try to make this about you instead of about $234 million in stolen federal funds. So, what do we do? Elena smiled sharp and ready. We tell the truth, all of it. Before he can twist it, she pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything you think they could use against you. Every mistake, every hard choice, every moment you're not proud of. Lisa's throat tightened. I was 19 when I had Olivia. Her father left before she was born. I've been on food stamps, filed bankruptcy, worked under the table when I couldn't find legal work. I've made every choice a poor single mother makes to keep her kid fed and safe. Good, Elena said, writing quickly. That's not shame. That's survival. What else? They talked until dawn, excavating Lisa's life with surgical precision. Every job lost, every bill unpaid, every corner cut. Elena never flinched, never judged. She just wrote and planned and occasionally reached across to squeeze Lisa's hand. You're not on trial, Elena reminded her. Derek Price is, but Moretti will try to flip the script. Make it seem like you're the criminal and Derek is the victim. We won't let him. Olivia woke as the sun painted the motel room gold. She padded out in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mom, who's that? This is Miss Elena. She's a lawyer. She's going to help us. Olivia studied Elena with that direct gaze. Children perfected. Are we in trouble? Elena knelt to Olivia's level. No, sweetheart. Your mom's a hero. She found something bad and told the truth about it. My job is to make sure everyone knows that. Olivia considered this. Like in the movies when the good guys win. Exactly like that. Elena said, except better, because it's real. The federal building downtown was all glass and steel and intimidation. Lisa had dressed in her best clothes, a blazer from Goodwill, and slacks that were only slightly too long. Elena walked beside her like armor, briefcase swinging, heels clicking authority with every step. Remember, Elena murmured as they entered. You're not the suspect. You're the witness, the hero. Act like it. The conference room held more suits than Lisa had ever seen in one place. Agent Patel was there along with prosecutors, investigators, and a court reporter who looked bored already. They peppered Lisa with questions for 3 hours, going over every detail until her throat was raw. When you entered room 13, was the door already open? Yes. You're certain? Yes. Had you ever attempted to enter before? No. Derek had forbidden it on and on until the words blurred together. Elena interrupted whenever questions veered into accusation, her voice cutting clean through attempts to trap or confuse. Lisa began to understand that this was its own kind of fight. With words instead of fists, then Vincent Moretti entered, and the room's temperature seemed to drop. He was younger than Lisa had expected, handsome in a sharp way, with eyes that catalogued everything and gave nothing back. Miss Monroe, he said, sitting across from her. I represent Derek Price. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Elena's hand touched Lisa's arm. My client will answer what's relevant to the federal investigation. Moretti smiled like a shark. Everything's relevant, counselor. Your client claims she innocently discovered millions in bearer bonds. The jury will want to know about her history of financial desperation, her multiple evictions, her bankruptcy filing. None of which changes the fact that your client's father embezzled federal funds. Elena shot back. Allegedly by a dead man who can't defend himself, while my client, an upstanding business owner, is being persecuted based on the word of a woman who was about to be fired for poor performance. That's a lie, Lisa said before Elena could stop her. Moretti's smile widened. Is it? We have statements from other employees about your attitude problems, your inability to follow simple directives, your inappropriate interest in areas of the hotel outside your duties. Lisa felt heat rise in her face. What employees? Victor. Mrs. Soto from housekeeping. They'll tell you I worked harder than anyone. Actually, Moretti pulled out a folder. Victor Hayes says, you often complained about your pay and seemed, quote, desperate and looking for an angle. Mrs. Soto reports you asked repeatedly about room 13 despite being told it was off limits. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Victor, who'd brought her coffee and said they had to look out for each other. Mrs. Soto, who'd covered her shifts when Olivia was sick. They turned on her for what? Money threats. People say things when they're pressured, Elena said coolly. It doesn't change the facts. The bonds exist. They were stolen. Your client knew about them. My client knew his father had hidden assets. He had no knowledge they were allegedly connected to any crime. He maintained the room out of respect for his father's memory. When he discovered Miss Monroe had broken in, the door was open. Lisa interrupted. So you say, but hotel security footage is unfortunately corrupted from that day. How convenient. The interrogation continued for another hour. Moretti picked at every thread of Lisa's life, unraveling her dignity stitch by stitch. By the time they finished, Lisa felt hollowed out, scraped clean. She'd known poverty, exhaustion, despair, but she'd never known this particular humiliation of having her struggles weaponized against her. In the elevator afterward, Elena was quiet. Then you did well. He made me sound like a criminal. He made you sound human. Juries understand human. What they don't understand is someone sitting on stolen millions while working people suffer. That night, Lisa and Olivia ate delivery pizza in their motel room, watching cartoons and pretending everything was normal. But after Olivia fell asleep, Lisa stood on the balcony and let the tears come for Victor's betrayal, for Mrs. Soto's cowardice, for every moment she believed that doing right would be enough. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number, but she recognized the voice immediately. "Derek, you stupid woman." He slurred. "You've ruined everything. My reputation, my business, my life. For what? That money was never going to help anyone. At least keeping it quiet. It wasn't hurting anyone either. It hurt everyone who needed it 40 years ago. It hurts everyone you've stepped on since." Stepped on. His laugh was ugly. "I gave you a job when no one else would. I gave you a place to live and this is how you repay me." Lisa thought of $9 an hour, of Olivia in thrift store shoes, of Mr. Hargrove's dignified face when served an eviction notice. "You gave me scraps and called it kindness. You kept me desperate and called it charity. That's over now, is it? You think this ends with me in jail, and you as some hero Moretti will destroy you. By the time he's done, you'll be unemployable. Olivia will grow up knowing her mother threw away stability for some misguided principle. She'll know her mother stood up when it mattered. Keep telling yourself that when you're living in your car." The line went dead. Lisa gripped the balcony railing, knuckles white. Below, the city sprawled in patterns of light and shadow. Somewhere out there, Derek sat in his expensive home, protected by expensive lawyers, still believing the world owed him deference. And somewhere else, Agent Patel worked late, building a case. Elena prepared strategies. Olivia dreamed of better things. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of depositions, court appearances, and newspaper headlines. Hotel hero or thief? Single mother's suspicious discovery. Questions mount in bearer bond case. Moretti had leaked just enough to muddy the waters to make Lisa seem grasping rather than brave. But Elena had been busy, too. She'd found former hotel employees from Derek's father's era. One by one, they came forward with stories. The housekeeper, who'd been fired for asking about delayed paychecks. The maintenance man who'd noticed construction funds diverted. The desk clerk who'd seen Robert Price meeting with men who carried briefcases but never stayed the night. He was building something in that hotel. One elderly woman testified, always construction noise from the second floor, but nothing ever seemed to get finished. And then one day it all stopped. The workers disappeared and Mr. Price. He changed, paranoid, mean, like he was sitting on something that scared him. The forensic accountants found more shell companies, forged signatures, a clear trail of federal funds converted to bearer bonds over 6 months in 1978. The scope of it staggered even the prosecutors. Infrastructure money meant for 3 states. Disaster relief for flooding victims. Pension funds for teachers and firefighters. All of it funneled into untraceable bonds. And hidden in a hotel room safe, Derek's defense crumbled, but not without fighting. Moetti painted Lisa as an opportunist who'd stumbled onto a fortune and tried to claim whistleblower status to legitimize theft. He brought in her bankruptcy records, her food stamp applications, every moment of financial desperation reframed as evidence of criminal intent. The trial became a spectacle. Lisa's face on the evening news. Olivia staying with Mrs. Patel to avoid reporters. Elena fielding interview requests while keeping Lisa focused on the truth. Simple and unchanging. She'd found the door open. She'd discovered stolen money. She'd called authorities instead of taking it. On the stand, Lisa faced Moretti one last time. Miss Monroe, you had access to $234 million in untraceable bearer bonds. No one knew you'd found them. You could have taken just one, and changed your life forever. But you claim you never even considered it. Lisa met his eyes steady. I considered a lot of things. I considered my daughter growing up in poverty. I considered the field trip I couldn't afford. I considered the medicine I've rationed and the meals I've skipped. I considered all of it. So, you admit you were tempted to steal. I admit I'm human, but being poor doesn't make me a thief. And being rich didn't give Derek the right to sit on blood money. Alleged blood money. Real money, Lisa interrupted. Stolen from real people. Teachers who never got their pensions. Families who never got disaster relief. Communities that never got the infrastructure they were promised. That money has been sitting in a safe for 40 years while people suffered. While Derek charged me $75 a month to live in a converted closet and threatened to throw me out if I was 5 minutes late with rent. Your Honor, Moetti started. I'm not done, Lisa said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. You want to know why I didn't take it? Because I've been stolen from my whole life. Wage theft from employers who knew I couldn't fight back. Dignity theft from people who looked through me like I was furniture. Future theft from a system that keeps people like me running in place. I know what it feels like to have someone take what's yours. I wouldn't do that to anyone else. Not for any amount of money. The courtroom was silent. Even Moretti seemed momentarily at a loss. The judge leaned forward slightly. And in that moment, Lisa knew she'd won something more important than any legal victory. She'd won her voice back. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Lisa spent them in a small room with Elena, drinking terrible coffee and trying not to think about what came next. Olivia was safe with Mrs. Patel. The motel was paid through the week. Beyond that, everything was uncertain. Whatever happens, Elena said, you should be proud. You did something most people wouldn't have the courage to do. I was just angry. Lisa admitted, and tired. Tired of being small. The best revolutions start that way. When the verdict came on all counts, Lisa felt nothing at first. Then Olivia burst through the doors. Having convinced Mrs. Patel to bring her for the reading. She ran into Lisa's arms, and the tears finally came. Not for Derek, who sat stunned as bailiffs prepared to take him away. Not for the money that would be returned to federal coffers, but for the simple fact that someone had finally listened to her truth and believed it. The whistleblower settlement came through for months later. Not millions, but enough. Enough to rent a real apartment with separate bedrooms and windows that actually sealed. Enough to buy Olivia new shoes and the winter coat she'd been eyeing. Enough to breathe without counting every penny twice. Lisa found work at a community center, helping other single mothers navigate the same systems that had almost crushed her. She told her story when asked, but mostly she listened to theirs. The woman whose employer withheld wages. The mother whose landlord ignored black mold. The daughter whose father had been cheated out of his pension. All of them carrying pieces of the same burden Lisa had known. The weight of being unseen. Elena kept in touch, sending updates on the federal investigation that had expanded beyond the bearer bonds. A network of corruption dating back decades, all stemming from that original theft. Properties bought with stolen funds. Businesses launched with laundered money. A whole ecosystem of grift built on the foundation of those missing millions. One evening, a year after that night in room 13, Lisa stood in her new apartment, watching Olivia do homework, at a real desk with a lamp that had never needed duct tape. The apartment wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where all the appliances worked, but it was theirs, earned honest, and that made it a palace. Olivia looked up from her math worksheet. "Mom, remember when we lived in the hotel?" Lisa's chest tightened. "Yeah, baby. I remember. Was it really that bad?" Lisa sat beside her daughter, choosing words carefully. "It was hard, but it taught me something important." "What?" "That just because life puts you in a small space doesn't mean you have to think small thoughts. And sometimes doing the right thing is the biggest thing you can do." Olivia considered this with that serious expression that made her look older than 9. "Like when you found the money and told the truth exactly like that." "I'm glad you did," Olivia said, returning to her homework even though it was scary. "Miss Elena says you're a hero." "Miss Elena's being nice." Olivia shook her head firmly. "No. Heroes are people who do the right thing even when it's hard." "That's you." Lisa kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathing in shampoo and possibility. Outside their window, Cedar Rapids spread out in the dusk, lights beginning to twinkle like promises. Somewhere out there, the Riverside Inn stood empty, scheduled for demolition. Derek's lawyers had negotiated minimum security prison 3 to 5 years. The bearer bonds had been returned to the Treasury. The money allocated to the communities it had been stolen from for decades ago. It wasn't perfect justice. It never was, but it was something. Lisa's phone buzzed. A text from Agent Patel with a link to a news story. Federal program announces infrastructure funding for flood-damaged communities. The article detailed how recovered funds would be used to rebuild exactly what they'd been meant for. In 1978, roads, bridges, schools, hope. Lisa smiled, set the phone aside, and helped Olivia with her fractions. The math was simple now. No more impossible calculations. No more stretching nothing into something. Just numbers that added up the way they were supposed to in a life that finally made sense. Later, after Olivia was asleep, Lisa stood on her small balcony looking out at the city. She thought about room 13, about choices made in darkness and secrets kept too long. She thought about Derek sitting in a cell, still probably believing the world owed him difference. She thought about her own journey from that rainy night to this quiet evening. The courage to speak truth didn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it came at 3 o'clock in the morning in a war-known hotel, faced with more money than you'd ever dreamed of, and the choice to be bigger than your circumstances. Sometimes it came in a courtroom, refusing to be made small by men who thought poverty was proof of unworthiness. Sometimes it came in the quiet after, building a life that honored the stand you'd taken. Lisa had spent years believing she deserved nothing. Derek had screamed it at her like truth. But she'd learned something in that federal building, facing down expensive lawyers and institutional power. Everyone deserved truth. Everyone deserved justice. Everyone deserved the chance to be more than their hardest days. Even her, especially her. The city hummed below, alive with stories she'd never know. But her own story, the one she'd write from here, finally felt like enough, more than enough. It felt like everything. Anyone can find the courage to speak truth when silence would be safer. Anyone can choose justice when injustice would be profitable. Anyone can decide they deserve more than nothing. Even when the world insists otherwise, especially then as Lisa Monroe closed her door on the night, she knew her fight wasn't ending. It was transforming, from survival to purpose, from silence to voice. From a woman who cleaned rooms to a woman who cleaned out corruption, and that was worth more than all the bearer bonds in the world. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories waiting for you. Click to keep watching and see how ordinary people become extraordinary. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe truth deserves a voice.